All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts.
Here, if you have a beard, random men are going to always walk up to you and try to lick your beard.
Ew, that's so disgusting. Oh.
You're one of Mitten's kittens.
Hold on. Oh, so I'm like, nope.
Oh, well, you lost all your fleets.
Oh fuck. Not what we intended. Oh god. What do we do?
The Meta Show.
What's up, everyone, guys? Welcome to the Meta Show. It is Saturday again, Tournament Saturday, final weekend, guys. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come join us. We do have a very special guest. We have CCP Nullarbor. Nullarbor. Sorry, I think in Nullarbor and Nullarbor, etc. But guys, along with that, we do have...
It's easy to mix them up, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But we do have the Mittani from, I believe, Seattle, right? PAX?
Yeah, I'm in PAX, and the local net is overloaded, guys. So we're trying to
Imagine that.
set up Connect. I know, it's amazing. Like E3, PAX, everybody anywhere near the show is sucking up all the bandwidth they possibly can. So I am having to call in by phone to give the updates today.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time, and I just realized that I think we're on a 60-second delay. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Did you set up where you like streaming?
It was from my FCing this week. I left the delay on, so we can either wait 60 seconds and restart it.
Well, I mean, we're already more than 45 seconds into running our mouths here, right?
Right.
So,
well, no, it's live now. Problem is just questions are going to be really delayed.
Okay. Well, we will be able to watch the chat and see what we can get from people.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Absolutely. 1 minute delay, we can survive around. We can't deal with 5 minutes. But it's been a really wild week in Eve. I mean, for having so many weeks with no news. I mean, of course, it's kind of our fault here in the Imperium because we sort of went off and created news, as one does, with the whole Providence thing. And then, that's the first major test we've ever seen of anything happening in Fozziesov at a block level. So there's that. Have you been keeping track of this Nulli Secunda thing, Laz?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well jump straight into the Nullsec Power Hour there. I saw the thread, and I the first time I read it, I was like, this is probably some just epic honeypot or troll or something. I mean, Nulli Secunda been around a long time now, and even when after ProGod left, a month and a half ago or so, they still were holding decently strong. But it turns out look like they are going to be closing their doors. I'm actually pretty shocked about it. Actually really sad about it too, because that is a fountain of content that we've had in the past, and it's gone now.
Yeah, Nulli Secunda has been a big player in Nullsec for years now, and I mean there are three key sort of people within Nulli. ProGod was, of course, their main FC that everybody knew about. Gorga was nominally the alliance leader, and when they announced that the Gorga Corporation was going to be shut down, that's kind of when we knew that things are going to go off the rails. And their spy guy didn't get as much press, but Jean Lerner went over to PL a while back, and at that point sort of knew that they were in serious trouble because Jean ran an excellent spy agency, one of the few competitors to the Imperium's Black Hand. And when he went over to PL, it just didn't really seem that people wanted to, go to war under the Nulli Secunda name anymore. And I guess I think that was just the end of it, right? I mean, if your principals are deciding that they're out and they're going to other places and nobody else is stepping up, there's no new talent going to replace them. You pretty much have to shut your doors or end in a humiliating way. Like after that, it just sort of withers and dies.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I do have to applaud him. It's better, like I said, put a bullet in the back of the head before you become this withering corpse and not really able to do anything, just ruin the name that you once had. So I do commend them on go ahead and taking out back and shooting it.
Well, there's been a lot of this kind of going on. I mean, it's not just Nulli Secunda. We've had a lot of people, major players like Quid I Am in Space from Pizza, formerly of Pizza, had sort of loudly left the game not too long ago, complaining about Fozziesov. He's been very active on Reddit criticizing CCP and the Fozziesov system. And as well, we also have, it's not quite the same thing as having an alliance close its doors like Nulli Secunda, but we also have, I mean, Black Legion announced just yesterday that they're giving up all of Fountain and going to low-sec, partially because they can't stand the SOP system, and they just want out.
Yeah, well, we had a small dose of the SOP system this week myself.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but no, they moved in their alliance update, which was posted to Reddit or cross-posted to Reddit. They posted that they're going to be going to B-G, which is Cloud Ring, to have easy access to other low stack opportunities like Black Rise, because there's typically a lot of PvP in that area. And like you said, in Fountain, which everyone knows about Fountain who knows about Nullsec because of the Fountain core residents. There's this group of players that live in those NPC stations in the center of Fountain that just wreak havoc. So I'd have to say that I would hate to live with an occupant like that that's actually competent. I mean, we have MOA, but they're nothing compared to the Fountain residents.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about with, I mean, sort of a segue there, but it really, I guess not so much. The last time that we had a CCP developer on the show, we had CCP Master Plan, and one of the discussions that we ended up having was discussing the mechanics of whether it would be possible for CCP to have NPC station and NPC nullsec station services be hacked, and Master Plan said that it would actually be entirely technically feasible. And one of the reasons why the SOB system is currently, we're going to be talking about more of these tweaks. As you guys know, my position has always been that Fozziesov is not the end of the world. It just needs a few tweaks around the edges. And now we know where some of those edges are after the last week's adventures in Provi. But what Black Legion has been dealing with, what Pizza has been dealing with, what the Imperium has been dealing with, we've been handling it more successfully, is that there just really isn't that much incentive to live in Sov Null compared to living in an NPC Null. And the balance of being able to interdict guerrilla types like your Fountain Core residents, your Mortis Angels, your pizza guys living in Delver, what have you, I think would be a little bit more reasonable if you could hack NPC station services. So maybe once you see all these other nullsec alliances just fleeing conquerable sovereignties, maybe CCV will add that to the list, make those station services hackable. Do you think that would make an impact?
I definitely think so. If you can actually do some, like, actually, I don't know, because if you think about it, like if you turn off the station services, I guess it depends on how long it takes to turn them back on for the person living there, and what would be the mechanics behind that, because no one technically owns it. And the current way that the entosing or soft hacking, however you want to call it, works is the actual owner of that system has to flip it back themselves. But since it's NPC, there's an NPC owner. So I mean, I don't know if it's like if maybe they could actually, here's an idea, set a timer. So if you disable the services, those timers won't be back for like 6 hours. They're down for X amount of time.
And that's entirely reasonable, because you can have a decay system where, because they're already looking at, I mean, they mentioned that there's a possibility of having node decay added to Fozziesov, which is something that we're big fans of. And so you could hack a station service to disable it in NPC space, and then just over time, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 6 hours, whatever, it comes back. There needs to be a balance. Large organizations need to be able to disable these services to sort of interdict in a world of, nullified interceptors, which is a whole other can of worms. But at the same time, you don't want to have alliances completely crushing out their NPC space 24/7. You want to be able to have some degree of guerrillas. It's just, if an organization is having an op, they need to have some method of squeezing at that territory. At least that's I'm obviously biased though, so God only knows.
This is CCP the Mittani actually giving you updates what's going to be happening.
Oh my!
Yeah, go ahead and stir that pot. So guys, it's gonna be. I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, and I don't want to dwell too much on it. But the whole, like you said, everyone, especially nomadic alliances, like you have Pandemic Legion, who are even before Fozziesov came out, gave up their space. You have Northern Coalition Dot, who gave up most of their space as well. I mean, they're holding on to a little bit of Delve at this point, but it's mostly gone. I mean, you're seeing all these groups just say, "Fuck it, just fuck it." I mean, we have to hear what CCP has to say about that, and especially after this week, after the almost did it. I almost said the other word, the 3-letter word. After the Imperium, I went to Provi.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting experience. It was the first time I've seen a huge block actually try to use the system. I mean, we went over there. Everybody has a different reason for why we went, but we went to sort of test the system, see what we could learn, put Maximilian Singularity VI, first of his name, on the throne, and wanted to try a sort of new Sov-based blitzkrieg strategy. So it was really interesting. I mean, I ended up playing EVE Online almost nonstop for like 12 hours a day for 4 days. And then at the end of those 4 days, the war was kind of over. It was really kind of weird. Like,
I think
Laz, what was your
hours.
longest software experience? Like, what was the longest, like, when you were in, was it the Halloween War for you? I mean, some of these things, they could be 2 months before they finally, like, peter out under the Dominion system.
Yeah, I think Halloween Warp would have been the longest. Tribute took a little bit. But no, I think Halloween War was the longest. Like, I think it was like, what, 3 or 4 months, that one?
The minimum time was always, like, the minimum you were committed to a Sov War or Eve previously was basically a month and a half.
Yeah.
Unless the enemy, like, completely caved inside of a week, which even then you'd have to do tons of cleanup. So going from a time scale of a minimum of 1.5 month commitment for everybody at the top levels of your organization and getting your line members ready to go and just pushing, going from that to 4 days. I mean, the reaction from our line, a lot of the guys were like, "Oh, hey, we're going to war," but I'm busy, or I'll catch it up next week once we'll get our stuff together. And then people are going, "Whoa, wait a second, what do you mean the war's over and we're undeploying?" Like, I missed it.
Huh? But just to interrupt just for a second, guys, a quick shout out to 10 Inch for the 4 months of resub, and Jim J99 and Joel Snug for 7 months each of resub. Guys, thank you so much for the support to the channel. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I probably spent 40 to 45 hours playing EVE Online this week.
It's been really interesting. I mean, I haven't had a chance to, like, really dig in and play in a block war style personally on the field using the Mittani himself, which is kind of funny. Normally I roll around on alts when I play.
Right.
And the gameplay itself, I mean, a lot of people were expecting it to be miserable. And, there were definitely some recon guys, and a lot of us were frustrated with the node system. But a lot of the frustration that we were experiencing when we went in there, I thought was stuff that was just strategic level, like in terms of better planning and better doctrines would have lessened the frustration. Do we want to, I mean, Laz, why don't you explain your experience of the Provi War and what our plan was and how that went for you?
Well, basically, guys, we went in there with the plan where in our coalition, all of our allies were given the set constellation. Some took 2 constellations. And as we got into it, I think what went wrong was it was so much to organize, and it's such a new system without the experience. And the Imperium, the way that they work, the way we survived all these years is we are the most organized group in the game. Period, hands down. Like that's how we win. That's how we win. Is our organizational skills. And we got into the middle of this week, and everything was basically pants on head. Shit hit the fan. There was just, that organization just wasn't there because it's such a new system. And personally, I would have to say we bit off too much. In hindsight, if we were to actually go and seriously take a region, we would focus two constellations at a time, going like in hindsight. But because we were there to test it out, I think we needed that experience of what happened.
Well, divvying it up into individual constellations, I mean, normally the Imperium always works together. Like, there's no differentiation between the alliances. So what we ended up doing was creating, by divvying up the territories, everybody in the Imperium, and this has never happened before, every alliance in the Imperium brought completely different doctrines, which weren't necessarily compatible. The idea was that we would have these sort of, constellations would be like little, petri dishes or incubators or whatever, where people could try different strategies and then we could compare. And one of the first things that we discovered, it was very interesting because people could follow along on Dotland, people completely uninvolved in the war. Unlike any other war in Dominion, where you could really lie and have propaganda about what was happening on the ground, the fact that the new system is keyed into the API and everybody can pull and see how a campaign is going, I think is fantastic because it really, there's no bullshit, right? The iHubs were destroyed or they were not. And that was simply the case. And everybody in the galaxy got to watch it. So it was just interesting because, I do think you're right. I think that we rapidly discovered that doing an entire region all at once is nuts, splitting everybody up is nuts. Like some alliances in the Imperium handled things just fine on their own. I don't know. What do you think was the biggest surprise for you out of the Provi deployment?
The biggest surprise, I wouldn't say surprise. I think what I noticed most was that nullified interceptors are completely retarded, and I stand by what I've said for months now that they are retarded. But I think, like I said, one of the biggest problems with us taking the whole region was we were split so much, and where we have allies like 2 constellations or 3 constellations away, getting engaged in numbers that they can't fight, and we for us to go there and help them, we'd be losing some of our nodes ourselves. So I think that was the biggest issue there that we had, was just being so spread out that we couldn't properly support people as fleets were coming in, because we had Stainwagon came every single day. Every single day, Stainwagon came with 120 to 130 man Cerberus fleet. You had multiple form-ups from CVA each day, and you also had Pandemic Legion. You had a Pandemic Legion running around with Serbs and with troll interceptors.
Fozzie Claws.
Fozzie Claws, yes.
Fozzie Claw. It is interesting. Just I got to pause here for a moment to give a shout out to CVA, UI Federation, Volt, all those guys in Provi Block, because they fought like lions and they kept forming up no matter what happened, even though they lost their main staging system. And that was awesome to see. I think all of Eve got together because it was like, holy crap, somebody's actually doing content. Let's do this. And so that was just amazing. I really liked Core Blood Brothers and his boys getting out there. And it was a very good spirited war in general. Like, there was not very much angst, because I guess everybody knew from the outset that the stakes were going to be pretty low, because we said straight up that we were just going to burn some iHubs and fuck off, right? So I don't think anybody was really afraid of like losing their region or anything like that. So I never saw in local, I never saw it get bitter or weird. It was just kind of like, hey, we're blowing up spaceships, high fives.
No, I think it was actually pretty civil compared to like when we're fighting other people or like grudge matches that you used to see in Old Eve. It was definitely very, very relaxed. And actual quick shout out to YOLO Swagtron 9000. God, that fucking name for the subscription, man. Thank you so much. But no, I was really impressed with Core Blood Brothers. He deserves a shout out there. The day Wednesday, when everything's coming to Rainforest, whenever I was sitting on the station with a Dami fleet, I think they docked about 300 ships into me, and they all got bombed into oblivion by boat multiple times. And they just kept on doing it, kept undocking, and it was impressive. Most alliances after getting wiped like that would stand down and I guess we'll try later, a few hours or something. But no, they kept on going.
But I mean, the thing about this that's interesting is that from a line member perspective and from a SOBMAP perspective, this is something that if you compare this war to the Dominion War, what we're sort of dancing around here is that the reality was this was, okay, so the Imperium went in a way that was not normal. Our doctrines were different. We split up the constellations between different alliances and sort of worked together, but sort of left people onto their own. And despite all of these organizational challenges, self-imposed organizational challenges, we kind of blew up half the iHubs in Providence in 4 days. That is ridiculous. And the reason why I want to come back to this is that when you're listening to Laz and me talk about, Provi, and we're talking about, oh, well, there's this problem here, there's this problem there, there's this problem there, that kind of disguises the reality. The reality is that we burnt a region, half of all of the infrastructure hubs in a region in 4 days, and we did it with essentially two hands tied behind our back, and I don't know, with some sort of ridiculous clown suit on or something. I don't even know. But this was a ludicrously crushing victory, considering how everything else that was going on. People are going to be talking around this and trying to not look at the iHubs, and it's going to be fascinating to me over the next 100 days to see the indexes recover the vulnerability windows, which are now so much wider over most of Providence. And I think that the discussion hasn't really focused on this. I mean, Goonswarm managed to get, in our constellation, we had 2 constellations, we blew up 11 out of our 12 assigned iHubs in 3 days. We hit them on Monday, we blew them up on Wednesday, and I think we hit the last one that we were missing on Thursday as an afterthought, and we're just running around helping allies out. Like, that that is a vulgar display of power right there. And I don't think that was intended. I mean, the entire point of this new SOP system was supposed to be that a block wasn't supposed to do this kind of thing.
Well, considering the first day we had no ships, I mean, the first day our first fleet was like 160 out of 180 were interceptors, and we're like, well, shit.
Oh man,
we had to wait another 2 hours.
It's a very compressed time, right? So like, there's usually when we go to war, there are a couple of there are certain stations on the cross, right? So we usually go to war too fast. We don't have appropriate supply. The first day is usually us running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And usually we lose a Titan as a sacrifice to the Whelp gods. So all of these things and then we win. And then all of these things happened as if it was over the course of that, month and a half, just compressed into those 4 days. Probably one of the biggest changes that you saw, I don't know, what I thought was so fascinating was the reliance, the success of everybody's always talked about hacking in terms of interceptors or little crappy ships. So what we really saw in this war is that if you want to hack something and not be just sort of a random NPC harasser, if you want to hack something in a strategic sense, you need to have a very heavy hack ship. You need to have guards for that hack ship. Otherwise, the interdiction nullified interceptors with warp scramblers on them and with warp, of course, stabilizers on them will come by and gank your hack ship and wander away. And so the Imperium alliances that used heavy hack ships had total success. I mean, executive outcomes just obliterated their constellation inside of that 3 days. Like, there was no problems at all. While the rest of us who didn't bring heavy hack ships were kind of going, oh God, we lost another hacker. What do we do?
Well, by day 2, we actually swapped Intosis links onto a few Tengus. Like, we'd roll out with a Tengu fleet, and we'd have 5 to 10 Tengus with Tech 2 Intosis links. And once we did that, it was pretty easy to actually control a large swath of the constellation, because then you have time to go back and forth and kind of defend them. I think I'm actually writing a post. I'm halfway done with a post that describing all the stuff that I think would change. Dude, I'm such a bad poster. I'm just going to put it out there. Which, by the way, I want to give a quick shout out to Easter Raven for the new subscription, man. Thank you so much for the subscription. Make sure we get some beard looks in chat. And then also, I think we should quit dragging on about Provi and jump into our actual reason people are watching us today. Is that for CCP Nullarbor?
Okay, excellent. Let's go ahead and bring him on board.
All right. Forget he's not in this call, so I'll drag him in. All right. Waiting from there it is.
Hello.
Right. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the Meta Show on CCP Nullarbor.
I'm very good. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, before we get into it, could you give us a little bit of background on yourself? Maybe like some of the stuff you worked on in the past, game-wise?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Team Game of Drones, and I've been at CCP for coming up 4 years now. I worked on Dust for quite a while, and in the last 2 years, I've worked on this team doing the industry revamp last year in the Crease expansion. I actually implemented jump fatigue. Don't hate me. And
all right, guys. So I'm be hanging up on CCP Nullarbor now.
And lots of other projects in between. I was involved in the player build customs offices way back when, and now we're looking at structures. So that's a bit of a recap of my history, I guess.
Yeah. Wow, I implemented jump fatigue. I don't know how to take that one.
Wow, that's a bit of a distraction there, isn't it? It's like, wow, okay, well, I don't know. I mean, as somebody, we didn't have this question written down because I didn't actually realize that was the case. I mean, if so many discussions have happened regarding the jump fatigue, you were the guy who implemented it. If that is your child, is that a problem child? How do you feel about jump fatigue after it's been in the game for a few months?
So I came in onto that project right at the end, basically, when it was a mix of designers were coming up with a system and they just needed an engineer to get it done. So that's when I sort of popped in. So I actually missed a lot of the early discussions on how it arrived at its current design. But I have been keeping my ears, on the discussions on what they want to be doing with it now. Talking to Larrikin as well. We've been just chatting about the idea. Like, let's just look at the numbers again. Maybe we need to rebalance it. Maybe we've got some changes that we can do to it to improve it, because we haven't looked at it since it went in the game. But otherwise, no, I can't really speak so much for why it works like it currently works, other than yeah, if it's not working as they described, then come and talk to me. I'll fix it.
Well, that's actually a pretty interesting data point. I mean, the jump fatigue changes came in with Phoebe, and that was now many months ago. And so now we know here for meta show viewers that that has not been examined again. So there we go. That's an excellent data point. Well, I hope that you guys take a look at it soon. We should probably talk about Citadels, which is the main thing that you are heading up these days.
Yes.
I'm really excited for these too.
And not just Citadels. You know, if you go back to our FanFest presentation, we're basically looking at every structure in the game. We started this with a big exploratory exercise on anything that can be anchored, and this includes customs offices, all the deployables, even warp bubbles, and trying to figure out how they all work, which, as it turns out, is all completely differently. There's lots of inconsistencies in their behavior. And when you compare that to like how all the spaceships work, they have different capabilities, but they generally all work the same, and that's something we weren't particularly happy with. So that's what we're looking at now. Like, can we make how all of the anchorable things, all the permanent stuff in space that players build, can we make all of that consistent? So we're starting with Citadels, but later on we're going to be doing the assembly arrays and laboratories and observatories and all sorts of other things, lots of different functionality and different sizes, small and large.
And will those...
So what do we... Sorry, Laz, you go.
Well, those arrays, those laboratories and stuff like that, will they actually be attached to Citadels, or are those going to be separate structures in space?
So all of the things that I just described are structure hulls in the same way that ships have hulls. And you can fit modules onto ships. You'll be able to fit modules onto structures. And the structure class, which the Citadel is a class of structure, is going to come with some hull bonuses, exactly the same way that ships have bonuses. And the different classes, you have an assembly array, which is really good for manufacturing things. This Citadel is designed to be the home. It's where you're going to put all your stuff. It's going to be the easiest to defend and have the biggest guns. So that's the one that we're looking at the moment. It's also going to be more, market and player trading contracts and that kind of thing.
So do we know?
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
Actually, so we'll have to tag team this because I can't see your face, Laz. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So my follow-up will be, okay, so we're having, particularly for the XLs, we're looking for these to be the place it's intended, like you say, to have the place where everybody puts all their stuff. So I guess the big question, which kind of goes back to something that we've been discussing before, is what advantages are there for players in SOD Nullsec to put all of their eggs in these particular baskets, these XL Citadels when they're implemented, compared to just keeping all their assets in NPC stations?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and one that we struggle with, actually, that the existence of NPC stations is kind of, it's almost getting in the way of us trying to rebalance the risk-reward, elements of storing your stuff. So that's always going to be something that we have to keep in mind. But I mean, the big thing is that the new asset safety system that we're describing in the latest dev blogs, it's sort of the fire sale approach to outposts, but automated. So we're hoping that's going to be at least a lot more convenient for people, and in some cases cheaper if you can get back into the system. You just have to put another structure down to collect all the assets back. So in terms of safety of your stuff, definitely NPC stations are super competitive, and eventually we're going to get rid of all of the existing player-built stations, so space is going to thin out. That's on a much longer timeline, though, and then you'll just be left with the new structures. But for sure, NPC null and low sec areas, and even the density of NPC stations in high sec actually creates a bit of a problem. We want people to put their stuff in these player-built structures. We think that's more interesting, and that's something we've got to try to balance the reward of.
And,
I mean, from an alliance perspective, I'm sorry, Laz, this
it's okay,
is
go
a follow-up
for it.
here. It's like, I was going to do the tag team thing, and yet this is something that we really need to drill down on. It's like from a perspective of a block leader, you have so many assets that are associated with the alliance, right? And so if the system is implemented, all of the major blocks besides the Imperium have already said, you know what, screw this, we're putting our stuff in low sec or in NPC space or whatever. And we're out here in the Northwest with massive amounts of assets. And, you know, until I see a convincing argument otherwise, I mean, I think that we will probably end up, when the system does get implemented, sheltering most of our alliance level stuff in NPC space stations because they're currently just so awesome compared to. So, I mean, what do you think you guys could do to incentivize us to put assets at risk?
Yeah, for sure. One of the big ones is going to be that these stations have guns. And we're hoping that's going to help people, maybe not you guys so much, but it's going to help groups fight asymmetrically, so that, you know, outnumbered, the capabilities of the structure will give them a greater defending force. And then a huge part of it, and this is why we see people put, you know, stuff in POSs, is the convenience when coupled with all of the other things that the structure is doing. So manufacturing, access to markets that potentially have lower tax rates than NPC markets, and, you know, basically all of the bonuses that we can give you in a station once you upgrade it. And then you obviously need to put stuff in it to make all of that functionality work. So that's kind of what we're going for. That we'll give you a carrot that, you know, lets you put a little bit at risk.
And I believe from your FanFest presentation and roundtables at FanFest, you guys mentioned that not only stations we'll be taking away, like player-built stations, but also POS. What about the actual conquerable stations, like VFK and Declan?
We don't know yet. You'll hear more about that later, I guess. We to be honest, we haven't even got a timeline for when outposts or any of the POSs would disappear. If you go back to Yuchevian's presentation at FanFest, we talked about a phasing out where we start removing some of the functionality of them first, or at least nerfing, you know, their how effective they are at doing some of the refining and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's going to happen over a long timeline, and giving people enough opportunity to transition to the new structures on their own rather than just sort of ripping them out. Once we get there, then we can have a discussion about, well, is there too much NPC stations as well? But I think it's a little bit too early to speculate on that just yet.
Well, and you say it's too early, but just to clarify, with you guys pulling these structures out of the game, when Fozziesov came, they destroyed a lot of iHubs, and the players saw no compensation for that. When these player-built stations, which cost 20-30 billion ISK apiece, get pulled from the game, or is there going to be some sort of compensation to the players for these structures? Yeah,
definitely. We'll have to do something. Probably not ISK. We might just give some, you know, mineral values or something along those lines. But yeah, definitely, we can't just take everyone's POSs and outposts away. They've invested too much in it, and we think it's, you know, good that you keep the value of that. We'd like to see you transition that to the new structures, obviously, but we can't. There's no direct one-to-one mapping where we can just take an existing POS and turn it into a new structure or anything like that. So we'll have to do this the hard way, where, you know, we give you the value back, and then you can build the new structure if you decide you want to do that.
Yeah, that could be definitely interesting.
Well, here's the thing that we've had a lot of questions about. Is, you know, we're going to be having defenses in the form of guns of some flavor on these citadels. But from what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is it intended that even the largest structures will have no automated defenses whatsoever, such that if you're getting attacked or harassed when you're AFK or asleep by random interceptors or whatever in that territory, nothing is like, what's the deal with guns, defenses? Do they have to be manned? What's the story there, and what's the design decision behind that? Yeah, so you're correct. There's no automated weaponry on any of these. They have to be manned and fired exactly like ship guns get fired. And really the motivation there is we think the automated defense is an annoyance and not particularly interesting once you know how to bring enough, you know, tank and you know, basically defend against whatever the structure's got against the NPC guns. No one should ever really be dying unless they're making a mistake. But we don't think that's particularly interesting. We'd much rather see players fighting each other and using the fittings and using the sort of the tactics of your own fleet and the strategy of how you designed your structure to defend itself with another person at the helm. That's a lot more interesting.
The way we're countering that is to make sure that you get very good control over when the structure is vulnerable, and just to encourage that that's going to happen within the hours at which you play, so that it's not while you're sleeping. And actually, to be honest, if somebody's there just randomly harassing you while you're asleep, we want to make that as easy as possible to get to an opportunity when you can fight together on a common time zone. That's why these things have 2 reinforced cycles.
Well, and with these citadels being destructible and everything like that, to prevent, say, a single frigate coming in, toasting it, maybe having a lower class set of weapons, like you can have your bigger guns on it that can be manned, but maybe it's some sort of automated point defense to help counter just some random troll scepter doing it.
Yeah, potentially, or I think that there's a lot of concern about losing the initial attack on a structure, and in reality, it doesn't do anything except create a timer which you must come back, and we need to balance how frequently that can happen. And yeah, I don't know. I think what we might do later on is reassess. Maybe putting an NPC ship type defense. That's something we've talked about before, where you could spawn NPCs around and they could provide a minor deterrent for one guy who just comes and tries to one-shot it just to create a timer or just to annoy you. But we're much more interested in when a player is interacting with another player, and we're just going to try to squeeze the time zones together and make sure that can happen.
Well, I mean, this is actually a kind of a really curious thing, because I know the way that CCP has balanced teams set up. I mean, you have your team, which is working on this, and then there's the team that has been working on Fozziesov, and then there's ship balance, which is sort of off in its other territory. But with the Citadels project, the way in which, excuse me, not Fozziesov, Aegisov, when CCP people are on here, we do say Aegisov. We try to be polite. So, but it sounds to me like the questions that Laz is asking about random harassers, we keep using the phrase troll scepters and things like that, to be able to effectively balance the citadels, it sounds like you, as a designer, are going to need to be interacting with questions of, hacking balance. So like the discussions about changing hacking such that if the hacking module is doing its thing, your prop mod is disabled, discussions of troll scepters with interdiction nullification, and just the whole nature of the system. Are you in touch with other teams about these concerns as they relate to your Citadels project, and how so?
Yeah, of course. We talk with 5.0 quite a lot about all of these design decisions. For the moment, they are looking at sovereignty and Intosis now. It's shipped, and they're looking at rebalancing it. And for the most part, we're waiting to sort of see how all of this pans out before committing, exactly how that's going to work against the structures, because we are next, but it's not an immediate, thing that we have to figure out. So we are kind of so we're keeping an eye on basically what's going on with sovereignty and the Intosis link, and making our own, plans about whether, we might need to tweak its behavior against structures to make it more compatible with, a structure that's shooting weapons back at you against versus the sovereignty stuff, which doesn't. So yeah, I think it's more of a wait and see. There's a lot of discussion in the community at the moment, and I know there's a lot of design talks between the two teams about changes that we might need to make.
Well, like you said, it is really early in that development process, but do we know when we will see the first Citadel and what size it'll be?
We're doing the M and the L first, and we're on track for this year, towards the end of the year, but we don't have a date, and the honest answer is we actually haven't picked a date with this new release cadence. We are working on this and making sure we get it right, and then we'll ship it when it's done. But we're still aiming towards the end of the year for this.
Okay, so end of the year. And there's 4 classes of Citadels: small, medium, large, and extra large?
There's no small. There's just the M, the L, and the XL. We are imagining a world where we design a new, like a structure ISIS, kind of like the ship ISIS. and you can sort of see the progression of the different classes and the different sizes. And the small categories for all the deployables. And we've sort of flagged them as something that we're going to visit after getting through the M's and the L's and the XLs and figuring out all of that behavior. But that's basically where it sort of fits in that picture.
Okay, so one of the questions that I keep getting from people who are more production-minded, particularly with their impact on the T2 economy and how South Nullsec works, is can you maybe speak a little bit about how this system will tie into moon mining, harvesting moon materials, and what, will that be impacted? Will people be getting materials through citadels in a different way than they are currently? Let's talk about that.
Yep. We don't have any designs exactly. We just have that the drilling platform is the space for that design to go. But some of the brainstorming we've had is, can we make moon mining an active activity rather than passive? Maybe you deploy a structure and it's creating a little asteroid belt around it that has to be picked up by the players. We've been discussing the interaction with, structures being deployed at temporary mining sites that last for a few weeks that eventually get torn down and are highly competitive because of their sort of transient nature, that they're only there for a moment in time and then there's not many of them in the universe. So people, you might get little mining operations chasing sites around the galaxy. So that kind of stuff has been discussed. We don't have any particular plans though. This is more brainstorming. But the drilling platform as the class of structure is going to be the basis for all of that. And we'll be talking a little bit about that next year.
In that platform, is it going to be fitted to a citadel, or is it going to be one of those small structures?
No. So it is its own class. The drilling platform is like the Citadel as a class. The drilling platform will be its own class, and there'll be probably a medium, an L, maybe an XL of that class, and you'll be able to fit various mining-related modules to them. Something that we are making sure that is still going to work, though, is that you can cross-fit modules between the structures the same way that you can fit, you can do a mining rock. It's not particularly great, but you can. We want the services from different classes. You might say like refining is a more drilling platform-oriented service, but we'll be able to fit that on the Citadel as well. You just won't be able to get the same bonuses that it has, compared to the right class. So we want you to be able to sort of mix and match the different service modules for whatever you need to do. But if you really want to specialize in something, you'll upgrade your structure and you'll build the right class of structure and put all the services on it that you need, specific for that class.
Okay, this is really interesting to me because one of the few things left in nullsec that provokes high value single point conflict is the value and the money that comes from moon mining. So just to correct me if I'm wrong here, it sounds like you want to eventually remove any kind of, is it true that you want to remove any kind of automated production of materials?
Not necessarily. We like that the value of space can be, harvested by the people who live there. And we think it's an interesting interaction that you would have more active players doing that. Currently you have the people who actually run the moon mining operations are very few, and they run hundreds or maybe thousands of POSs, and they must hate themselves and hate us for making them do that. I'd like to see that more distributed amongst the players, that you can have them farm the materials and have that sort of trickle upwards through to the Alliance. A lot like PI and the POCOs work. Like, you can have claims of space, put a POCO down, have your members run the PI, and then the tax trickles upwards. And we kind of like that model. We'd like to see that applied to more areas of the game, I think.
Okay, Laz, do you want to get the next one about the hangars?
Yeah. So one of the questions we've been asked is if, I'm trying the best way to phrase this, with these new citadels and with limited office slots and stuff like that, and these drilling platforms and all these other small structures, are you going to be able to have a corporate shared hangar even if you don't have an office? Are you decoupling the corporate hangar from actually having an office in that station?
Yeah, so the citadels can have corporate offices. but they will be limited and require upgrades to get more. And then the upgrades will be a rig slot, which will be a little expensive. So if you want to build, your alliance headquarters and put lots of different corporations in, and they all want corporation offices, then you're going to need the larger size with the larger rigs. But if you're just a one corp operation and you don't need lots of corps, then you can just drop a single M down and you'll get a corp hangar there.
But it's okay. So you guys don't think you'll be decoupling it where you won't need an office to actually have a hangar?
As in, should you be paying fees? No, actually what we'd like to see is you pay fees, but you pay it to the owner, and you can potentially just say that that's free, and only allow certain corps in there. So we kind of want to give you more flexibility to create public stations where people can rent corp offices from you, or more alliance focused where you're dictating exactly who goes where.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So here's another question for you. How do you think taxation is going to work if people have to then mine in a belt in space? Because, currently mining isn't taxed in any way within the game mechanics.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. If we did a mining structure where, the structure itself is creating the ore from, a moon or from another large object or something like that, we can have part of the ore potentially taxed, as well as if you reprocess it in that station, then we can tax that operation. And what we're carefully figuring out at the moment is making sure that you can set different taxations for different groups, so that you can have your alliance with a special tax rate, but you can also open it to the public, and they could come and mine this structure from you, and you can collect the tax from them as well. So, and we want to see this not just for nullsec. This is for groups in lowsec and highsec. We build stations that are basically providing services to other players.
Well, okay. So here's a follow-up, and thankfully I have somebody who's an economic expert on tap to help my questions be a little bit more intelligent here. What we're wanting to know here is that if you have to use a rig slot or something on offices, and I don't really understand the rationale from a design perspective in the first place of having offices be such a pain in the ass for players to get together. But if we do upgrade the offices, does that mean that we have to sacrifice a production or refining bonus?
Yes, and that's the balance that we're trying to strike between just putting all of your upgrades into a single structure.
So in other words, just build multiple citadels?
Well, no, in the case of if I want to be building, if I want to be manufacturing and I want a manufacturing bonus, then you'll be building the assembly array structure, because the hull bonuses on that structure are more suited for manufacturing. And if you need that level of specialization where you want the maximum material efficiency, then you'll build that structure with the right rigs and fill all the rig slots with it, and that's going to be the best place for doing that. If, however, you want to have a citadel that has hundreds of corporations, all with corporation offices, but you also just want to throw in a manufacturing array for building some ammo, you can do that, and it will just run, unbonused, not at the same level that the manufacturing array would.
Is there any limit? So one of the questions that we have, there's been discussion over the years about removing the artificial limit on player-created stations only having one per system. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to is there going to be any limit on the number of Axel citadels we can place in a system?
Nope. Maybe really high, something like 500 or 1,000 if we decide that it's going to crash the server. But
okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever hit that limit, but who knows? We'll have to see when we get there.
But hypothetically, you could have if you really need to have lots of offices for war staging or something like that, you could have an XL Citadel that's just there to have 1 million offices, and then right next door within the same system, you have a Citadel that has all the fancy production stuff that you want. That's the intent, that we can specialize these, and we're not really limited like we are in the current system.
Absolutely, and if you want to have a manufacturing array that is 1,000 kilometers away and visible on the grid, and you can warp between them, that would be fine as well. It's just not going to be in the same station. There's 2 targets with 2 potential engagements to happen there.
Interesting. And quick shout out, guys, to Skeptic Nerd Guy, an amazing username for the 7 months of resub. Guys, thanks so much for the support of the channel. And also, to, I guess, to kind of move away from production stuff, capitals. Everyone wants to know about mooring. And how it's going to affect your supers. Like,
Yep.
so if you're moored to your supers or to that Citadel, is it effectively docked and you can get out of it, or what's the relationship there?
Yeah, so mooring is a really great name that got confused a lot. Mooring is actually just the replacement for the POS shield, or the equivalent of the invulnerability time when you undock from a current outpost. What we want mooring to be is a way to transition to, like, leave to and from the station safely. So while you're moored, you can freely move around as long as you stay within range. No one can target you. If you create a weapons timer, then it's going to drop the mooring and people can engage you. But it's not designed where you would just, get out of your ship and leave it moored, or you would log off and it would stay in space and it would be moored there. If you log off while moored, you're going to disappear the same way that you would normally disappear inside a POS shield. However, we are allowing supers to dock in the XL citadels, so you'll just be able to put them inside.
All right. Well, and that opens.
Well, that's excellent news.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that that's excellent news. I mean, people who've been supers have been needing to dock for a very long time. But I mean, so we're going to see these things coming into the system, and the questions that I keep getting from our guys is, okay, so we currently have the system right now, and we're going to see citadels introduced by the end of the year. How do you expect to see the first citadels that get introduced used by a player? Like, what's the utility and the advantage for a player to put one of these things in space right now compared to what we have today, even starting with the size M ones?
Yeah, I mean, so the size M and L, it's a POS that you can dock in. And the reason we're shipping these ones first are because they are basically the base functionality that all of the other structures are going to get. They just have the most bonuses towards defending. So the really advantage is that you can just create a space, a location in space that I can put my stuff and it is safe. And that's the thing that we think is currently a little rusty with POSs, the way that corpse and personal hangars work, and having lots of little inventory locations that you've got to move all your stuff between. We think it's a huge upgrade from how POSs work for just storing stuff, basically. For outposts, in terms of just raw storage, they're not that competitive, but the addition of having supers dock, I think, is going to be a really exciting possibility. Yes, I see people talking in the chat as well, Titans included, so you'll be able to put your Titans in them.
Chat's losing it right now.
So, I mean, basically, like right now, so that makes sense. That is actually a useful advantage for smaller players. When you see, so like individual players, you can have a Citadel they put up, they can dock multiple ships there and have hangars and storage there instead of just having a phosphorus field and a ship maintenance array. But I mean, is there any other additional value proposition of the Citadels that we're going to be seeing first besides you have a docking interface instead of using an SMA in your POS? Yeah,
so we'll be adding cloning as a service that you can install, so you can put medical clones. We're considering putting jump clones here as well. For the wormhole guys, they're particularly excited about the idea of swapping clones, not jumping to them, but being able to change them out, so you can change implant sets. And the really big one, which I don't know whether it's going to happen on release, but hopefully soon after, is the market. And the carrot that we've got with that is we want to reduce the transaction tax and allow the owner of the station to pick up some percentage of market transaction tax. So if you can build the new jitter, one jump from jitter, and have everybody run all their stuff through, there's a big profit to be made there.
Interesting. Huh. So what exactly, so we're thinking winter-ish, and I mean, you've been doing a lot of community outreach. I mean, I don't know how open you've been about this, but I do want to sort of pause. This isn't so much of a question as praising the fact that you have been engaging with the player base so much. I know that there's been lots of discussion about communication back and forth with the player base, and the Citadel team has really, and you are the figurehead for this, but it's not just you. You guys have really done a lot in terms of communicating with the player base, letting us know what you know, letting us know what you don't know, and allowing a discussion. And the fact that this is happening, months before we'll see one of these things, I think that's just excellent. I really, that's amazing. We really, really appreciate that you're doing that, dude. I mean, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I think it's just a necessity. You've such a complicated game, and we can't possibly understand everybody's, requirements and concerns. So, yeah, we have been for a long time talking about this and trying to understand how this is going to fit in the game, how what's going to motivate people to transition to use them, and where they think there's going to be problems. So we've been doing it for selfish reasons. We really want to get this right. So,
let's see.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, grabbing questions out of the chat real quick, guys. Also, make sure you type in chat. We're going to do the giveaways. We're going to try to take as little time as the giveaways as possible. That way we can squeeze in a few more questions. But see, one is, are there going to be different factions of Citadels? And then the other one was, will Citadels be able to go offline like a POS?
The faction question, yes, maybe later. We want to get all of the hulls out first, all the base, it's like in EVE, we didn't start doing lots of faction ships. We got a lot of different classes in first, and then we did faction variants. But we're definitely leaving in room in the design that we could have faction variants of the structure hulls, and they would have slightly different bonuses. Maybe not just better, but just like tweaked bonuses. So I know the Imperium's definitely excited for that potentially. What was the second question? Can they go offline? No, the structures have fuel, but you don't need the fuel for the structure to be online. It's only if you install service modules, and that would be a thing like manufacturing or installing a market or things like that. Those service modules will consume fuel over time. But if the fuel runs out, then the services go offline. So the market would go offline, for example. But you can still dock in the structure and access your stuff, and it's still going to have guns and all of that kind of.
So that's a huge advantage. So the guns are not tied to fuel. That's actually a pretty significant advantage for a player to start implementing these when they come around. Is it's like a POS, but you don't actually have to fuel the thing or other. There's no risk there. One question that's actually kind of complicated but very important from a market perspective, I'm being told by our finance and production guys, is you're giving us more control over taxes, which is excellent because currently CCP sort of devours the lion's share of taxes in market transaction. Has there been any discussion about having the tax on the markets and citadels, or however that's being handled, scale with standings, where it would be possible to have if I have allies who are docking that are plus 10 standings, they get the same, they get no taxes. But if I give you like a 0.01, if you're just some random person who I barely have blue, you get taxed at a higher rate.
Yes. And not just with standings, we're actually building a better system for assigning who has access to services, and if they do, how much they pay. So you'll be able to customize all of that for all the different things that players could be using that potentially have tax, and that goes for manufacturing and markets and reprocessing.
Okay, that's really interesting because we've had a problem for years where there's really not too much difference between standings at all. Like it just doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, and one big motivator behind this is, again, we want players to build player-built services for everybody else. So you can build your own market and set it as public, and random people can come up and buy and sell from you. They don't have access to all the other things that structure can do, but they can dock and they can use your market.
And just to be clear, I think I saw this discussed elsewhere, but one of the things that we really enjoy doing in this game is, as part of strategic warfare, is market PvP. Where, like, when we invade somebody, we buy up lots of critical things off of their market while we're attacking them. Will we be able to engage in market transactions from outside of these citadels, or will we have to be docked to interact with the market on that citadel?
We will keep you'll be able to operate them from range for sure. Whether you have access to the market or not is something that we've been debating, whether we should make buying something that could be done in secret. So you could build a player market that only your corp can use. We don't have an answer on that yet, but if that was the case, then the owner of the structure would be able to prevent you from interacting with the market orders. If we do make them all public, though, then yeah, you'd be able to buy it and put it into a hangar, but you can't necessarily dock there. So that's something we're kicking around at the moment amongst the team. We're not exactly sure where we're going to land on that.
Well, that's fascinating. I think we're running out of time here,
Yep.
so we're going to go ahead and do some giveaways.
I'm gonna have to jump in here.
Nullarbor, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
It's really awesome. You've been so helpful today answering all these questions that we had, and we actually have about 1,000 more, but we just ran out of time.
Maybe another time. We'll come back.
All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. What? No. All right, so guys, doing the first roll. Lakamar 32 is the first winner for our pirate ship giveaway, which is going to be a code message to the Twitch channel, and we will send you the code through the Twitch channel. And thanks to CCP Games for giving us these pirate ship codes to give away. And once you get the code, you will be able to redeem it for one of the 4 different pirate rookie ships. So we're going to go to the next one. Borox, Borrox, who's also a subscriber. Man, thank you so much for the subscription. You've won the second code. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop in the sub-only mode for just a second. So guys, bear with me. And we're going to be giving away an Art of New Eden book today. Really, really awesome book. Alex, if you want to tell them about that while I set up subs.
Yeah, the limited edition Art of New Eden book is fantastic, and CCP has been very nice to give us these to give away to our community. They're a limited edition. There's only 2001 copies of these things anywhere, and at PAX here you can see the Dark Horse comic books. All of these are proudly displayed. Only a few copies of them available. So we're giving them away to you for free. They're massive, hardcover, beautifully rendered book, and it's just awesome.
All right, so yeah, we're getting the sub hype going right now, guys, and we'll be doing the giveaway here in about 30 seconds. Looks like we are being told. All right, looks like we are going to, after this giveaway, be closing it down, guys. Thanks again to CCP Nullarbor. Yeah, I always want to call you Nullarbor.
It's close. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it works. It works. So thanks again for coming on. Really, really loved having you on. Hope to have you on soon, or even maybe in a few weeks. Maybe get another Citadel update. We literally haven't talked about Citadels for 2 weeks, just waiting for this week. So guys, doing the giveaway here for the subs. Winner for that is the MacLeod. The MacLeod has won the Art of New Eden book. Congratulations, man. Message the channel with your real life shipping details so we can send it to you. And with that, guys, we're going to start winding it down. Thanks to the Mittani for phoning in from Seattle at the PAX station.
Yes.
And then thanks to Blue Microphone and CCP Games, both are awesome sponsors for the show. See, I am using my Blue Microphone. And then with that, guys, we'll be closing down. You guys all have a wonderful Saturday. Tune into the Alliance tournament. Watch the rest of that.
All right. Thanks, guys.